Hello.
Hi, how are you
Hello.
doing?
Well, I'm doing pretty okay. I'm watching the thing from last night. Well, it was my last night. I slept over most of it, and then I heard it got out of hand, and that it sort of builds into the thing that we're working together on with Somniostatic. If you're interested in more hearing more about it before we begin.
Sure. Yeah, I'm open for whatever. Although I am
Limited.
getting a small echo.
Oh, I can reduce the echo. It's a thing that
Okay.
I. How's it now?
Um, Test. Better.
Yes, that's because I. That's a big problem that I have. I have earphones. The earphones are near the microphone, so you can hear yourself through the earphones near the microphone.
That makes sense. Um, yeah. So,
So
yeah, I'm sure. I'm down for whatever.
thank you.
I don't know exactly I don't know what I'll be able to add, but
The thing
uh,
that we've been working on is sort of the topic that we've been noticing with my editor Somniostatic.
uh-huh.
A tendency for arguments to spiral into almost arguments for argument's sake, if that makes
Well,
sense.
yeah. I mean, I think that happens. It's a perpetual pressure in any content creation space that people are incentivized to talk to everything from filling time to making drama to their egos are on the line when you're both on a call with potentially hundreds of people watching. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's a fair thing to talk about.
yeah. And it's because I've been thinking about the signal and the noise, and it's almost like the conversation itself becomes the noise, if that makes sense, instead of any
Yeah.
sort of.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that totally makes sense. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I felt like debate spaces had such a tendency towards becoming ridiculously toxic is because of that dynamic. Like, there's always an incentive for people to fight more, and never and rarely an incentive for people to, cool down and rethink their
Positions.
positions, even though that's like a good thing to do. Generally, it's better for solving interpersonal personal relations. It's better for like making progress on an issue,
Right,
but
yeah.
the issue isn't always what matters when you're online and there's all of these different dynamics at play.
Oh, that's true. Like, I over here, I don't know if I'm reading this correctly. I'm seeing a problem of two personal reads on the situation and then the situation itself being on sort of determinable objectively.
Mhm.
Like the
Yeah, well,
whole.
I mean, I think it's hard. That was kind of my point. Was like, I don't know. I think that it's like super ambiguous, and like that it's fair. I think that it was fair for people to come to various conclusions about
Conclusions,
it.
yeah.
I think there are some cases where that's not the case.
Right,
Obviously, I'm not like being like a context. Like I'm
yeah.
not doing that meme like where it's just like people say context to anything, even incontrovertible proof. But nobody engaged in the conversation, with maybe the exception of Stardust, knows the history of the relationship between DK and Beckett.
Yeah.
So, the way I was looking at it, the reason why I said what I said last night was just like, whatever. Like, I think it's possible that it could have gone either way. I mean, uh,
Yes.
obviously,
Like, I know that my
yeah,
gut reaction to it was like it felt like intimidation, but then we cannot know at the same time is factually true.
yeah, yeah, yep. I think that's true.
So, I don't know.
Hmm.
So, what do you
Yeah.
so because we didn't even like we didn't get into your sort of voice of reason interference
Oh
into
well, you'll
the
get there soon, and hopefully, I
yeah.
mean, I don't know that there's anything else I can add besides what I said last night. I just
What did you say last night that there was that it's ambiguous? Yes.
More or less. I mean, I said that I think that it's fair to come to either conclusion, but that like I
Yeah.
understood why. I understood why both Present Sunday came to the read he did and why Aiko came to the read that she did.
Right.
And I think both of them were kind of like, I think both of them were wanting the other person to like accept that it was like, uh, I don't know, overwhelmingly obvious in either direction, but I just
Right.
don't think it was. Like,
Yeah.
I just don't think it was. Like, even, and I, again, my bias in this situation is only towards, is away from any of the subject matters at hand. Like, I obviously don't get along with DK. That has
Right.
never been a thing. You know, DK has, that's putting it lightly. DK does
That
not
has
like me at
history.
all. DK hates my guts.
Right.
And is kind of obsessed with me in some in many ways. But um,
They
but
sort of stopped being obsessed with me when they figured out that. Do you know the history of my interactions with Chud Logic?
I do, yeah. I know you had a lot of back and forth on a couple of different issues, and that you were going to debate or something, but then it didn't
Yes.
work out, and he
Well,
kind of backed off of it, and
it's sort of just because that's my subjective read on it. Because of course, again, we can't know for sure, right?
of
We
course you
can't.
can never know for sure with any
Yeah,
type of thing.
like I made this video about him in which I basically most of it was me parodying his accent, but there was an underlying critique under it. But then he probably smelled a person that could be mocked,
Or so he thought.
or so he thought. And then he brought me in, and it didn't quite work out like he planned. So, mid conversation, he said, "Well, we should just. I can now see why people would watch you. We should just talk in a week about your contentions with me." And we even picked a topic. After I left, he even started watching the video that we were supposed to talk about.
Yeah.
And then it just amounted to nothing.
Oof. Well, yep. I mean, I don't know.
I'm not gonna
What can I say?
forcefully pursue it, but you know.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't have as much. I hope I'm not, disappointing you or anything. But I
No,
don't
no,
have all
no.
that much to add here because
Like,
all I really have to say is just, that I felt like they were talking past each other a little bit, and
yes, and
honestly, I'm glad that they were, from what I can tell, able to resolve most of their issues. It also felt like there was complications from a previous disagreement that may have been coming up.
yeah.
Um,
Well, hopefully they
honestly,
were
like
able
as
to.
far as serious things going on in this conversation, I don't even know how to begin to touch that. Like,
Right.
personally, I think the whole situation is one gigantic mess, and the only reason that I even became involved at all was because I was directly asked my opinion. Um,
Right. Yeah.
like Aiko wanted to know what I thought because I happened to be watching. I was like, just sitting there watching something, watching it randomly at night. And so I
Yeah.
said, all right, here's my opinion, as a mutual friend of both of you. That's about it.
Right.
So,
Like to me, I think it's like there's a conversation outside of this conversation to be had, if that makes sense,
mhm.
about how we
Absolutely.
can
I mean,
sort of try not to let things sort of spiral into like well arguments for argument's sake almost.
yeah, I mean, I think it's something that should be avoided. But I will say that I do think, like, I don't know, it doesn't surprise me that, like, that a conversation about, you know, Chud Logic's community and the communities attached to that sphere is like spurs this type of conflict. Like, that's what it's designed to do, right? Like, that's what the core of Chud's content is: drama.
Yeah.
So he's gonna do stuff that's intentionally edgy, that intentionally pushes people's buttons, and the end result is, of course, that if that people's buttons are going to get pushed, people are going to get pissed
Yeah.
off, and it's going to generate drama, which is why I generally stay uninvolved, except to be like hopefully a moderating voice, because I don't think that any of this shit is
Important.
is a good. I don't think. I mean, I think it's important to, in the sense that like it sucks for people who've been doxxed, and it sucks for
Yes.
people who've been like dog piled to shit and harassed and stuff. But like, it doesn't matter in that like it's all manufactured. It's all being manufactured for the purpose of like I can get clicks by being an asshole on the internet.
Yeah.
You know, I can get clicks by threatening people with docs or by implying that there's docs. Like I don't
Or
have time
playing
in
games,
my life.
basically.
Yeah, playing social games that like bother people, and I do think that there's something important in that. Like the people who become the target of that have a really horrible time. Obviously,
Yeah.
that's how like it's an intentional internet bullying of
Yeah.
people who largely don't do anything except for like I don't know, like in some chat somewhere someone's thought that they were cringe or something, so that means apparently that they deserve to have like their personal life invested into. It's literally 4chan tier drivel. So yeah, that's why I
Yeah.
don't usually involve myself in any way, except for when I come up, which is weird because I also was brought up multiple times in the actual conversation, which was weird to me.
Right?
But of course, I'm brought up as like an example of people that that community behaves absolutely unhinged towards. Like they're just insane and they're not okay and they're not well. So like I
Right.
don't know, whatever. Yeah.
It's interesting. Like, I always think when it comes to these conversations in terms of ultimately what your goal is and what you want to achieve, if that makes sense, to keep track of what your goal is.
Yeah. Well, my goal was just hopefully to be able to offer a outside opinion that helped President Sunday and Aiko communicate a little better, and I think I succeeded in that to a certain degree. I don't feel like I did all that much, but
Oh,
I was able to say like I was able to at least be like, hey, here's a just a step outside of the conversation for a second, and like that was my goal. But I understand what President Sunday's goal is, and I think I understand what Aiko's goal is. You know, Aiko
right.
is looking out for her friend and President Sunday is hoping to discourage people from engaging in and participating in a particular type of bad behavior.
Yes.
I just am like, I mean, this, in my opinion, this community doesn't really, the community that's being talked about doesn't give a fucking shit about
Yes.
good or bad behavior.
Yes,
They
I
are
would.
just looking for people to make fun of and laugh at and dig into, and they will basically. I mean, I feel like this community would shit their pants in public to get an extra click on a video, like
Yeah.
or whatever. Like it's literally it's like that embarrassing 4chan immature like I said a slur. Pay attention to me. And I'm for me, I'm just like, no, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
even in the conversation itself, like the primarily argument of child logic was I don't care, which is
Yes.
in
Well, that's
itself,
always the argument. It's always I
yeah,
don't care because if you care, then you have to have like
accountability
a
of any
stance.
sort.
Yeah, you have to have like a yeah, you have to if you care, if you pretend that you don't care about anything, then
Sort
you
of,
know,
you're outside of it to a degree, in
yeah,
your
you can
mind at
just say,
least.
"Oh, none of it matters. I don't have to think about any of the things that are going on. I don't have to think about the impacts of them."
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, it's a bunch of 4chan tier forum drama. That's basically what most of this is. It's forum drama, and some people get hurt at random because of like unhinged behavior, but mostly it's just the people who are participating in that space that get hurt the most.
yeah,
So in my opinion, the answer is just don't.
yeah. This
Well,
is
like I don't know, like but
this
like
is
why would you ever spend time in a place like that, or why would
this.
you ever care about a place like that? Yeah.
Yeah, this is basically why you chose to sort of just not pursue that debate that never happened, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because I mean, if we had a thing that I probably would have done it, and it would have been probably a very strange thing to behold if it would have went like it went with loner box, but
Yeah.
that's another topic.
Well, I haven't seen your loner box convo, but I did hear that it went relatively well, so that's good.
Oh, that's because I have my style, so to speak.
Yeah. You do have a
It's
very
like,
even-handed style.
yes, it's a very calm conversational style, which is why I call it a debate in quotation marks, because I'm not even sure if it could be called that. Like, he didn't agree, of course, at the end of the day, but I do have to share with you a thing that I have learned at a conference lately about the wasted lessons of the Holocaust. It was a 2-day conference in the Polish uh, Museum of Jewish History,
Mm-hmm.
and it is a term that sort of bridges the gap with people like Lonerbox, in my opinion.
Hmm.
It's a term coined by a, I want to say, activist and a journalist. I think he's also a historian. The term is proto-genocide. I don't know if you're
Okay.
familiar.
I mean, I've heard the term before, but I don't know. Like, I've never studied it deeply.
It basically means that you have all of the mechanisms that underline a genocide in place.
Mhm.
Even you have deaths starting, but it's at a point where you can still stop it from becoming a full-fledged genocide.
Hmm. I do think that that is a useful term for this conversation for sure. Um,
But of course, those conversations become annoying even in the academia, in my opinion.
well, I mean, also, I mean, I think again, the whole reason why this conversation on this topic has become so silly is for exactly what we were talking about at the very beginning of this call, which
Yeah,
is that incentive, which is that it's rarely ever going to become about the topic itself.
right.
The people who are talking about it are often, on at least one side, there is a significantly reduced personal investment in the topic,
Yes.
and so there is a incentive to, let it become a drama subject, which is exactly what happened with in the first place with this
Yes,
topic.
it did.
Like, like not your conversation with him aside, like it became a launching point, not about the topic itself, but instead as an opportunity to garner drama clicks via like I said to President Sunday recently, a extremely socially inept like manifesto posting thing. Which I don't even know if that had any success, but do you see, like, that should not
Yeah.
be the result of like a genuine contest of like, hey, I think you're, but I mean, from the get go, this whole thing is messed up. This is one of the problems of like streamer conflicts. They often just produce noise. They don't go anywhere
Yes.
because the often very important subject at hand is simply a vehicle for ego, for drama baiting, for click generation, for all kinds of things. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think. I think that's less a problem in like. It's less of a problem in like when people just do their own thing, but it becomes a massive issue whenever there's these public stage debates about really important topics. And it
Right.
doesn't always happen, but it's a huge. There's a very high risk of it happening because of the way the spaces are and because of the nature and dynamics of streaming, which is that everybody comes in with a very high ego level because streaming
Yeah.
is by definition, it is very ego focused. You have a streaming
Right.
personality that is carrying their show, another streaming personality, and the audiences that are aligned behind those personalities.
Right.
So yeah.
Although I do think that for us, at least in particular, it is sort of important to have some sort of a goal for it all in mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right.
Like what you're saying about the signal and how we can translate then that signal into some form of I mean, action,
You hope
preferably.
so. I mean, I always worry that like streaming spaces have a low turnover rate from content into action. It does happen, but it takes a lot of effort, and there are um there's a lot of things that just it often just like sort of peters out into nothing. Like I don't know. I do believe that it's possible to turn content and that
Hmm.
drives people towards action. I obviously believe that's possible. Not only have we seen like really cool charity
Right.
things, not only have we seen really cool like cooperative things, we've even seen projects like progressive vote, like making some headway, getting being able to swing certain votes or at least
Right.
impact the swing of certain votes. But it takes a lot of focus and a lot of concentration,
Yes.
and by default the space is mostly in like the space as a whole, like all of streaming but specifically political streaming is biased towards just the creation of more content,
Right.
and the viewers are mostly watching very passively and are not amazingly motivated to jump to any sort of action. So it does have to be done very deliberately, and the expectations have to be set that a lot of times what is being done in these spaces is entertainment. That doesn't mean it doesn't matter,
Of course.
but it's just that it has to be understood as entertainment, and entertainment that can be edifying and inspiring, but it's not the same thing as like activism. It's not the same thing as like direct political engagement. It is
Right.
we're in the entertainment industry. All of us are, and we have to remember that,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Of course, I think those things can sort of intertwine, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense.
Yeah. I do think so. Yeah.
Like I'm thinking of bringing on certain people that are involved in real life activism, in real life sort of action, and I think we can, like, when it came to this conversation about the genocide, the trans genocide, right? To me, it's sort of because I know that in the poly people debate, Loner Box sort of brought up the topic of what that does it mean that you want retaliation, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a big topic that came up, and I think I brought it up when I talked to him that the level of reaction will depend on where you are. And for example, it can simply translate to people being aware enough to move from an unsafe space to a safer space. And that I think it's an important for people to not be caught unawares.
I agree. Yeah, I do think that like I'm not trying to be too negative about about being able to impact people or like have political actions flow downstream from streaming at all, because I do think it's possible. But there was this. Are you familiar with Mike from PA?
Yes.
Yeah, Mike from PA is a character, but there was like this. There was this time where he was. I think it might have actually been in a debate with Vosh, where he was talking about like how like if I bring on a union organizer every single stream, no one will watch my stream.
Yeah.
And that's just true for anybody. It's not just a Mike from PA problem. It's a literal anybody problem. It's just not like people do not have the bandwidth. They're not going to. It'd be like asking people to watch your stream and your stream involved them like making burgers or stocking shelves. Like it's like people
Yeah.
aren't going to do like they're coming to streams because they're looking for a form of entertainment, and they're often open to hearing all kinds of political messaging. They're often interested in these types of topics, but we always have to remember that like the entertainment it's just like there isn't any show that can just every single day bring on like a or there's very few. There's a handful of shows that can get away with that sort of thing. Like for example, the Majority Report, which has cultivated an audience over the course of like 20 years,
Right.
and they are as a old school news radio show. Like they can bring on an activist every single day if they want to, and they'll still have
Right.
viewers. Because that's the type of show that they're built. But that's not what the streaming spaces are, and that's not even what's promoted in streaming spaces like algorithmically. So we just have to keep our expectations realistic, and also
Yeah.
be creative with the ways that we mix entertainment and you know information, the way
Yes.
that we mix education and entertainment, the
Yes.
education or the edutainment aspect, I should say.
Right. And I also think there's an interesting aspect that, well, it was showcased, for example, with the fundraiser for my mom. That there's the element of being able to move certain funds via this entertainment, and these funds can be moved in a positive real life action direction.
Yeah, funds and attention. And I think that like community connection and what can be done with community connection
Yeah.
like directly is the most effective and valuable form of like political engagement in these spaces. Like online streaming online gives us a unique ability to build communities and to communicate with those communities, which means that all kinds of coordination can happen. It's just like,
Yes.
you know, you have to be very wise, and there's an art to it. And I do agree with you that, like, yeah, emergencies can be attention can be brought to emergencies, and people can bring funds where it's needed. People can bring attention to where it's needed. People can sometimes even bring like actual, physical hands, where it's needed in certain cases. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
there have been many cases where streaming communities, there's been a natural disaster or something, and streaming communities have actually been able to mobilize a decent number of volunteers and stuff. Um, but yeah, I think that's where the strongest part lies, is in like the creation of
Yes.
communities that care, and communities that can communicate with one another. And I think that there's like a little bit less value from streaming spaces in like, I don't know, organizing a vote, or
Yes.
it's not that it's impossible. It's not that there's no value. It's just a little bit on the lesser side.
Well, when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about a situation. Uh, People X that we know are living in a very dangerous state right now. They're being deprived of. I'm talking about hypothetical situation, although these
Sure.
happen, of course. And we, in my opinion, can organize as communities to help the people there to move to a new, safer place, and even to facilitate a new start. I think
Yeah,
it's within our means to do.
I absolutely agree with you on that. Well, I should probably go and eat my food now because my food is done.
Yes.
Was there anything, last things you wanted to talk about? I feel like we've kind of moved off the topic, but it's been
Well,
really nice nonetheless.
I think sort of they are intertwined. This, like, I
Yeah.
think it's intertwined that the more we that's the main sort of, I guess, worry, that the more we concentrate on the noise of the conversation, the less we sort of, the more we forget that we are doing all of this for reasons,
Yeah.
concrete reasons, that
Concrete
we,
reasons. Yeah. And also, it strains relationships. It makes people more stressed. Um, sure, it might buy you a few more clicks on a video, but it damages. I mean, this is the whole thing. Like to sort of tie it off, like there was a politics space on Twitch at one point.
yeah,
Like, not
Twitch
only did it
Paul.
exist as a category, yeah, but I mean, it not only did it exist as like an actual category on the website. You could click politics, and there would be people who were streaming into the politics category, but like there used to actually be some level of community there. And over time, this just constant willingness to just burn bridges and strain relations completely exhausted all of the members of it, ruined all of the relationships in the space, and left very few people better off. It was mostly just like mutually deleterious. So I
Yeah.
think that like it doesn't like, yeah, it behooves us to actively push back against the incentives of the space that say that like every conversation needs to be maximally ego, every conversation needs to be maximally content brained,
Yes.
etc. Yeah.
And I think it's up to us to build a better thing, in my opinion.
I agree, and I believe that it's possible. I genuinely do.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
well, thank you so much for having me on,
thank
Lucy.
you. Sorry.
It was really good.
Thank you for being
Yeah,
here.
yeah, no problem at all. I hope the rest of your stream goes well. I'm gonna go eat some pizza
Yes.
and relax a little bit.
Okay. Thank you. I'm gonna do it
Have a
at
wonderful.
a few hours more because it's 4 a.m. 4:04 a.m.
Fine.
Of
You've been going for
course.
7 hours. Don't burn yourself out too hard.
I know it's like a typical thing for me.
Your long grinds. I know that feeling. But stay safe and stay well. It's been wonderful. I hope the rest of your stream goes great.
Thank you. I'll see you.
Bye.
Bye bye. Nice. Um. Okay. So we got the expertise. And yes, there is a need for more editorial media producer thinking here. What is my goal with my content? What I bring up a topic? And basically, why to answer this question in the context of this stream, I'm not bringing up the topic specifically to argue on whether or not we should think it was intimidation or not intimidation. Like my goal, I bring up the topic of that stream is because I want to discuss the topic of discussions becoming noise. That is basically my main goal with talking about this. And we're working with some new static on the thing regarding this, if this makes sense. I'm looking at the conversation through that particular lens of seeing if the conversation is not becoming noise. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So we're gonna continue.
DMs.
Also, because from what I've seen, the stream ended on a bit of a like a strained note. Do we know if President Sunday and Aiko were able to reconcile in private? That's an actual two ducks in a heart.
Like if she would think she
It was a noise. I've fallen back asleep on this one, President's. Yeah, and I think that's a sort of a problem that these situations happen.